At the final 5, a man sat there holding a necklace that made him completely immune. Nobody could vote him out, and by the end of the night he'd handed that necklace to someone else and walked his own torch up to Jeff. That's not luck. That's not a twist. That's someone getting talked out of $1 million. Survivor has run for 50 seasons, and in every single one, there was one move smarter than all the rest. Today we're counting down all 50, and I'm going to show you the single greatest move in the history of the game. It's not the one you think. Here's the rule for this list. We're not crowning the winner of each season, because in Survivor, the smartest player and the person holding the check are very often not the same human being. We're crowning the single sharpest move. The blindside, the bluff, the lie, the read that bent a whole season around one person's will. We're going in order, season 1 to season 50, and if you watch closely, you'll see something wild happen. You'll watch this game evolve from cavemen figuring out fire into some of the most sophisticated social chess ever put on television. Let's go. Season 1, Borneo. Nobody knew how to play this game yet. So Richard Hatch invented the way. He pulled 3 people aside and did the thing that now defines Survivor. He formed an alliance, a voting bloc. 4 people agreeing to vote as one. Everyone else was out there playing checkers as individuals. Richard was playing a team sport and nobody else knew they were in. He won. Of course he won. He wrote the rulebook. Season 2, the Australian Outback. Tina Wesson played the first truly great social game. While everyone else was still treating this like a survival show, Tina quietly built real, genuine bonds and turned them into jury votes. She was so trusted, so liked, that the Challenge King Colby won the final immunity and chose to drag her to the end, certain he'd beat her. He didn't. She took it. 4 votes to 3. The season that proved Survivor is won with people, not muscle. Season 3, Africa. This one fans still argue about, so we'll call it Frank and T-Bird convinced their own tribe to throw a challenge, just so they could go to tribal council and blindside a guy named Silas who thought he was completely safe. First time a tribe sabotaged itself as a weapon. Ethan's Own won the season, but that was the move. Season 4, Marquesas. 4 players had the game on lockdown, and they knew it. And they made sure everyone could see they knew it. Big mistake. The outsiders read that arrogance, flipped the swing votes, and took all 4 of them out one by one. The first time in Survivor history a dominant alliance got completely overthrown. It taught everyone a lesson the game never forgot. Never let them see you feel safe. Season 5, Thailand. Brian Heidick ran what players now just call the GOAT strategy. He dragged the most disliked person in the game to the end next to him. Because you don't want to sit beside a hero at the final vote, you want to sit beside someone the jury would never reward. Cold, calculated, it worked perfectly. Season 6, The Amazon. Rob Sesternino never won Survivor. Jeff Probst still calls him the smartest player who never did. At the final 6, someone tipped Rob that he was going home next. And in the span of one afternoon he built a brand new alliance and blindsided the guy who thought he had Rob dead to rights. Rob turned flipping between sides into an art form. Every Chaos player you've ever seen, Rob is their granddad. Season 7, Pearl Islands, Johnny Fairplay. Before he ever set foot on the island, he arranged for his friend to show up at the family visit and announced that Fairplay's grandmother had died. She was alive and well at home. He faked a death for a sympathy vote and some intel. It is the most infamous lie in Survivor history, and he planned it from his couch weeks earlier. Season 8, All Stars. Boston Rob talked his real-life friend Lex into sparing Rob's girlfriend Amber, promised loyalty, then turned around and blindsided Lex anyway. Ruthless. Brilliant. And here's the twist. The bitterness it created cost Rob the win. Amber took the money. So the smartest move of the season is also the move that handed the check to somebody else. Survivor's cruelest lesson. Season 9, Vanuatu. 1 man. 6 women left in an alliance against him. Chris Doherty should have been gone 6 times over. Instead, he found every little resentment inside that group, pulled 2 of them loose and picked the rest apart. A dead man walking talked his way to $1 million. Season 10, Palau. Tom Westman didn't outvote his final threat. He out-guilted him. In the final endurance challenge, Tom worked on Ian's conscience until Ian, breaking down, literally stepped off the challenge and eliminated himself to prove he was a good friend. Tom used a man's own decency as a weapon. Season 11, Guatemala. Danny Boatwright, on the chopping block, spent her auction money on a challenge advantage, then used it to win the one immunity she absolutely had to. She bought her survival at the exact right second. Season 12, Panama. Say the name every strategy fan knows, Sifri Fields. A woman who famously said she'd never gotten off her couch, playing from the very bottom, quietly built a secret Final 3 deal and orchestrated a blindside that set up the entire winning group. She didn't have the numbers or the muscle. She had the best brain on the beach. Remember her. She's going to come back and do something insane later in this list. Season 13, Cook Islands. This is the one that rewired the game. Yulquan had a hidden immunity idol, and instead of hiding behind it, he walked up to an enemy, showed it to him and said, "Flip to my side, or I use this to send you home." He turned the idol from a shield into a threat. Before Yule, the idol saved you. After Yule, the idol was a gun you could point at people. Tony, Russell, everybody who came later, they all copied this. Season 14, Fiji. Yao Man, an engineer, the sweetest man on the island, carved a fake idol out of a coconut, painted it up, and planted it where the real one had been, so the next person to go searching would think it was already found. Counterintelligence years before it was normal. Season 15, China. Todd Herzog won this in the chairs. At the final vote, instead of apologising for lying, he owned it. Looked the jury in the eye and explained that the manipulation was the game, and he'd played it better than anyone. A juror he'd personally betrayed said, quote, "You just stole $1 million, well played," and voted for him. That's not luck. That's closing. Season 16, Micronesia. And here's the move from the very start of this video. Siegfried's back, and with Parvati, Amanda and Natalie, she runs the greatest con the game has ever seen. Erik has the immunity necklace at the final 5. He is untouchable. The women convince him that the honourable thing, the gentlemanly thing, is to hand his necklace to someone else to prove he's trustworthy. He does it. He gives away his own immunity, and they vote him out on the spot. They talked a man out of a guaranteed spot in the finale using nothing but flattery, nothing but words. Season 17, Gabon. A physics teacher named Bob spent his nights whittling fake idols out of bone and wood and beads, good enough to fool people into handing over votes. Underdog, 57 years old, crafted his way to a win out of literal garbage. Season 18, Tocantins. JT and Stephen watched the dominant tribe tear itself apart in a civil war, then slipped in and blindsided a guy holding an unplayed idol. JT won every single jury vote, a perfect score. Season 19, Samoa. Okay, this is the one you're going to fight me about in the comments. Russell Hantz found hidden idols with no clues, just dug them out of the ground by instinct, and bluffed and bullied his way to controlling the whole game. It changed how idols work forever. But Russell lost. Twice, because Natalie White sat next to him, let him be the villain, and calmly took the jury's votes. So, which is smarter? Russell's innovation, or Natalie beating him with it? I've got my answer. Tell me yours. Season 20, Heroes vs Villains. Remember this one, because it's a finalist for the whole list. JT, a hero, was so sure the villains were about to turn on Russell that he secretly slipped Russell his hidden idol with a handwritten note begging him to flip over to the hero's side. Russell walked it straight to Parvati, and at Tribal, Parvati read the entire plan and pulled out not one idol but 2. Played them both on her allies. While JT got blindsided by his own alliance's vote, the idol he gave away now sitting in enemy hands. Arguably the most iconic tribal council ever filmed. Hold that thought. Season 21, Nicaragua. Strategically quiet year. The sharpest play was Sash using the idol like a loan shark, making a rival hand his idol over just to stay another few days. Season 22, Redemption Island. Boston Rob, attempt number 4, finally runs the most controlled game anyone had ever seen. When a dangerous wildcard came back into the game and confided in him, Rob turned his entire alliance on the guy in a flawless blindside and flushed the other tribe's idol in the same move. No mistakes, all season. Redemption arc complete. Season 23, South Pacific. Sophie Clark won this one at the final tribal. She refused to grovel and calmly dismantled a beloved returning player's whole honour and integrity speech in front of the jury. Season 24, One World. Kim Spradlin. One of the most total games ever played. She sat in the middle of 2 alliances at once and gently, warmly convinced people to vote out their own friends, never getting a drop of blood on her hands. Everyone trusted her. Everyone lost to her. Season 25, Philippines. Denise Stapley went to every single tribal council in her season. The only winner ever to survive that gauntlet. And late in the game, she talked her allies into cutting Malcolm, the one man who would have beaten her. Survival under maximum pressure. Season 26, Karamoan. John Cochran, a superfan who got wrecked his first time out, came back and played a perfect game. He engineered the blind side of the one independent thinker left, kept everyone calm, and won without a single vote against him at the end. Season 27, Blood vs. Water. Tyson controlled the whole game, but the bravest move of the season belongs to Sierra. First, she stunned everyone by writing down her own mother's name and voting her out. Then, rounds later, her trio refused to fold and pushed a deadlocked vote all the way to a rock draw. That's the rare tiebreaker where, when nobody will budge, players literally pull coloured stones from a bag and whoever gets the odd one is eliminated. Katie drew it and went home. Sierra kept blowing up the game and her own family for a strategic edge. That's Ice Water. Season 28, Cagayan, Tony Vlachos. Write the name down. Tony built a literal hidden shack in the bushes to eavesdrop on his own tribe's voting plans, the Spy Shack, and stacked up so many idols, including a special one you could play after the votes were read, that nobody could ever safely move on him. Espionage. Actual espionage. This is the blueprint for the greatest player the game has ever produced. Hold that thought too. Season 29, San Juan del Sur. Natalie Anderson came in to avenge her closest ally's blindside, and did it with math. She split the vote to flush around a man's idol so cleanly that he went home with the idol still in his pocket. Never got to play it. Then used her own idol around later to blindside another threat. Grief turned into precision. Season 30, Worlds Apart. Mike Holloway, with 0 numbers, played an idol on himself to void 4 votes, and then won basically every immunity left. Pure force of will. Season 31, Cambodia. Jeremy Collins invented the meat shield, deliberately surrounding himself with bigger targets so the votes always flowed past him onto someone scarier. He won without ever really being in danger. Perfect score. Season 32, Kaorong. Aubrey cracked an idol-armed power duo using nothing but a conversation, talked one of them into flipping on the other. No advantage, just persuasion. Season 33, Millennials vs Gen X. David Wright carved a fake idol so convincing that a rival played it at Tribal, and Jeff Probst had to announce it was worthless as the guy walked out the door. Season 34, Game Changers. And here's Sikhri again, 3-time genius, still never won. This time Sarah Lacina turns the whole advantage system into a trap. At the final 6, idols and advantages get played until Sikhri, who no one voted for, is left as the only unprotected person on the beach. She's sent home without a single vote cast against her. Nobody could even write her name down. The best strategist ever, eliminated by pure math that someone engineered. Brutal poetry. Season 35, Heroes v Healers v Hustlers. Ben Driebergen, totally exposed, played 3 hidden idols on 3 straight nights, finding the third the same evening he needed it, until the producers had to invent a new Final Four twist just to get him out. Season 36, Ghost Island. Dominic handed Jeff a fake idol pre-vote, swore it was real, and scared a rival out of playing a genuine advantage. A bluff with a worthless prop that beat a real weapon. Season 37, David vs Goliath. The underdogs, down in numbers, stacked advantages perfectly. Carl fired the game's first ever idol nullifier to cancel a rival's real idol, while Nick stole another player's vote. Send a man home holding an idol he couldn't use. Season 38, Edge of Extinction. Chris Underwood came back from elimination, talked a player into wasting her idol on him, then at the final 4 gave up his own immunity to make fire against the biggest threat, and bait him. He handpicked the finale he wanted and won it. Season 39, Island of the Idols. Dean fired an idol nullifier to void a real idol at the final 5. A high-risk advantage he'd won on a coin flip gamble, cashed at the perfect moment. Season 40, Winners at War. Tony Vlachos, the Spy Shack guy, comes back for the all-winners season and does the hardest thing in the game. He wins again. His sharpest move? Spotting a quiet power pair forming. Sophie Clark teaming up with Tony's own closest ally, Sarah, and orchestrating a blindside to break them apart before they ever became a threat, sending Sophie home with her idol still in her pocket. He saw the danger a full round before anyone else did. Greatest of all time. It's not close. Season 41. Xander beat a nasty advantage, one that could steal his idol, by secretly handing his idol to an ally, so when he was asked point blank if he had one, he could look them dead in the eye and truthfully say no, used the advantage's own rules against it. Season 42. Marianne Okech sat on a hidden idol and an extra vote the entire game without anyone knowing, used the extra vote to help take out the biggest threat, and revealed the never used idol at the final vote as proof she'd been in control the whole time. Season 43. Jesse blindsided his closest ally Cody, using an idol Cody had personally trusted him to hold, and spooked a second player into burning hers in the same night. Betrayal with your own best friend's weapon. Season 44. Carolyn Weiger, written off as the chaotic, emotional one, was actually running clean. Calculated misdirection the entire time, leaving decoys so nobody clocked her as the threat she was. Season 45. Dee Valadares controlled 2 different idols she never even found. Warned one ally to play hers, let another misfire his. Steering the endgame like a puppeteer, then owned all of it at the final vote. Season 46. Kenzie Petty weaponized being likable. She was so warm and so funny that nobody could bring themselves to see her as the threat she actually was. And she rode that goodwill straight to the win. Season 47. Rachel Lamont, knowing she was the target, played an idol and a vote blocker to survive the shot aimed at her, then pivoted her own votes to take out the biggest jury threat in the same night. Defense and offense in one move. Season 48. Kyle Fraser ran a secret alliance so deep that he and his partner Camilla pretended to be enemies all season, then fed the tribe a web of carefully built lies to engineer his blindsides. Nobody saw the real alliance until it was far, far too late. Season 49 gave us the first all-women Final 3 in over a decade, and Savannah Louie won it the hard way. She was on the bottom at the merge, staring down the barrel, then she went on a tear. 4 individual immunity wins, tying the record for a woman, fighting through a fire-making showdown to reach the end. Sometimes, the smartest move isn't a trick at all. Sometimes it's refusing to lose when the whole game has already written you off. And Season 50, in the hands of the fans. The fan-voted season of returning legends. The sharpest play came from Rizo Valovic. He was sitting in a tight 3 with 2 of the biggest names in the show's history, including the legend Ozzy Luth. And he did the math. You cannot win sitting at the bottom of a group like that. So he flipped, rallied the others, and blindsided Ozzy, who sat there with a hidden idol he never even played. But the season itself? It belonged to Aubrey Bracco. Remember her? Cow Wrong, way back in this list, cracked that power duo with a conversation? She lost that final. And 10 years later, she came back and finally got her crown. And the biggest prize in Survivor history. Some stories just take a decade to finish. So, 50 seasons, 50 moves. Which one is the greatest? I've got a top 5. Yul turning the idol into a threat, the most influential. Tony's Spy Shack empire, the most dominant. Sarah engineering a 0-vote elimination, the most ingenious. The Erik necklace con, the most unbelievable. And Parvati's double idol play, the most iconic. Here's my answer, and here's why. The smartest move in Survivor history is the Erik necklace con, and it's not the idols, it's not the advantages. Anybody can find a plastic trinket in a tree. What those women did required 0 tools. No idol, no advantage, no numbers trick. They looked at a man who was 100% safe, who could not be touched, and they used nothing but human psychology, his ego, his need to be seen as a good guy, to convince him to voluntarily give away the one thing keeping him in the game. And then they burned him for it. Every other great move on this list used a thing. This one used a person. That's the ceiling of this game. That's Survivor played as pure social manipulation. And 30 plus seasons later, nobody has topped it. But that's my answer. And I already know some of you are screaming Parvati, or Tony, or Siri, who, let's be honest, is the best player to never win. And it's not close. The fans agree, by the way. In Season 50, they literally voted Siri the $100,000 fan favourite. A genius finally getting paid. So tell me in the comments, what's the smartest move you've ever seen? Season and move, I'm reading them. And if you want the flip side, the dumbest moves in Survivor history, the ones that lit $1 million on fire, that video's right here. This is the trust cluster. Who do you really trust?